I don't need custody of this worthless kids. I'm not paying any child support either.
Those were the words my husband threw at me, a man who had done nothing for our children. I spent over a decade thinking it'd be better for the kids to have a father, but I don't need a man like this anymore. And the kids respond with a smile.
Okay, bye, Dad.
As for our life after that, my name is Natalie, a 43-year-old stay-at-home mom. Our family consists of my husband, Rick, our 16-year-old son, Jason, and our 15-year-old daughter, Emily. I used to work before getting married, but after Jason was born, Rick asked me to quit my job and stay home to provide proper education and support for our kids. I thought Rick would be involved in parenting with such statements, but he was anything but.
It's a wife's job to ensure the kids are raised well, and I have a pleasant work life. You're a stay-at-home mom, so you should do all that perfectly,
he said without lifting a finger to help. Juggling the challenges of first-time parenting and soon getting pregnant with Emily, I struggled with solo parenting while managing a household. In the midst of all this, if I neglected housework even a little, Rick would complain, so I was doing my best to keep up with it. Although Rick was disinterested in child rearing, he was persistent about his policy of ensuring a good education for the kids. I was constantly being micromanaged. I bought more books. Make sure you read over 10 a day to both kids and report back to me, he'd say, or complain about my choices like, "Why did you buy such non-educational toys? It's a waste of money." When Jason and Emily showed him their drawings, hoping for some praise, he dismissed them. Instead of wasting time on bad drawings, read a book or study your ABCs. I spent days comforting the kids from such hurts. Gradually, they stopped sharing their achievements with Rick. Even when I tried to share their daily progress, like Jason learning to swing alone, Rick never listened to me and just said, "I don't need such trivial updates. It's a waste of time." He never celebrated their birthdays or attended school events. His late-night drinking and lecturing the kids, waking them up, were frequent. With such behavior, I often thought it'd be better to divorce him. I was raised by a single mother after my parents divorced. I cherished her love and hard work. I love my mom. Yet, I knew the sadness of not having a father, which held me back from divorcing Rick. Although he didn't help with parenting or housework, he did provide financially for the kids' education. This was the only reason I thought it'd be better to have Rick around than not. As time passed, the kids become teenagers. Rick's disinterest and criticism persisted. One day, Rick unusually started a conversation with Jason, asking out of the blue, "What's your rank in class?" Jason, looking annoyed, replied, "I'm third." Rick laughed mockingly and said, "You're third? What do you even do all day?" "When I was in high school, I was always at the top of my class. Aren't you embarrassed to have two people ahead of you?" He just kept making such belittling remarks. Jason quietly retreated to his room. Rick didn't just belittle Jason. When he asked Emily, "Are you planning to pursue sciences or arts in college?" and she answered, "Arts."
Why art? The future is in sciences. There's no point in pursuing art. The careers you can get into are so limited. You're not choosing arts just because you're bad at math, are you? If that's the case, you should pay back all the education money I've spent on you.
He always spoke to Emily with such biased views. Emily replied, "I have something I want to do in the future," and left the room with a cold expression. The kids hated Rick for always speaking to them like this. Around this time, Rick's drinking habits worsened. He often returned home in the middle of the night, or not until the morning. One day, Jason and Emily seriously talked to me. Jason said, "Mom, why don't you divorce him? We'd be happier just the three of us." Emily added, "Yeah, we've never seen him help around the house. And he's definitely cheating. I saw his texts with another woman the other day. They were pushing for a divorce." Confused, I hesitated. "Don't talk about your father like that." And without proof of cheating, Jason interrupted, "Mom, do you think children are happier with a father? That's not the case at all. I've never felt glad that he was around since I can remember." Emily continued, "Right. He always talks about education expenses. We'd rather study hard on our own or work part-time to afford study materials than rely on his money." I was speechless. I had thought it was better to have such a father than none, but the kids preferred him gone. Emily said, "Besides, Mom, don't worry about the money. I'm fine with scholarships, but you shouldn't have to worry about money, right?" I nodded with mixed feelings. "For now, I'll think about it. You two go study in your rooms," I advised to settle the matter. I thought long and hard at that moment and decided to investigate Rick's infidelity. Weeks later, the investigation results left me speechless again. Rick had a long-term mistress and even a child with her, and he was financially supporting them. Rick always said, "I'm better at managing money," and only gave me living expenses and the kids' education fees. He claimed the rest was being saved for the kids, but likely there was no such savings. This led me to a decision. A few days later, I asked Rick for a serious talk. I confronted him with the divorce papers and the infidelity investigation results. Rick was initially shaken but soon became defiant.
You have no right to complain. I've provided for the kids' education and living expenses. I've fulfilled my responsibilities. How will you manage the kids' college expenses if we divorce?
I answered, "I'll figure it out. It's okay." Realizing my resolve, Rick said, "Then I'm going to my woman. I've done my duty, and you're divorcing me for your reasons, so I won't pay alimony or child support. You okay with that?" He thought I'd panic. "You cheated, so it's not just my decision. But fine, I don't need anything if I can just divorce you." "Jason, Emily, are you ready?" I called out, and the kids came out with big bags. Emily cheerfully said, "All set." Rick was initially stunned, then became angry. "I'll take custody, of course," I declared. Rick yelled, "Of course, these worthless, ungrateful kids. I've spent money on them, and Jason can only manage third in his class, and Emily wants to go into arts. I don't want custody of these failures." He probably expected us to beg for his help or money. Jason coldly said, "Dad, I guess I should thank you for everything so far," and bowed his head. Emily waved, "Bye, Dad. Take care," contrasting Jason's demeanor. We left the house with the three of us. As we were leaving, Rick yelled, "You're acting tough now, but don't come crawling back when you're broke. You'll be living in poverty." Months later, Rick sent a message saying he was living happily with his mistress and child and wouldn't give us a dime. I quietly deleted his contact. 10 years have passed since then. I was about to go for a walk in my favorite dress I recently bought, along with my dog I got a few years ago. Then I saw Rick, emaciated and in tattered clothes, at the doorstep. I stepped back in shock. Rick muttered, "Living in such a mansion. The detective's investigation was true. I couldn't believe you were living so well, and had to see for myself." Furthermore, Rick, with bloodshot eyes, said to me, "You were just a stay-at-home mom until our divorce. There's no way you could have a job that pays enough for such a luxurious lifestyle. Where did you get the money? Did you commit a crime? Did you win the lottery?" I didn't want to let him in, but to avoid a scene at the gate, I reluctantly allowed Rick into the house. Then, as Rick asked me about what happened after our divorce, I calmly explained. Rick had mocked Jason for only being third in his class, but at that time, Jason was in a pre-med program. And being third in such a competitive class was an incredible achievement. As Rick wasn't interested in the kids, he didn't even know this, and ridiculed him based on rank alone. Jason later got into medical school and is now working as a doctor. As for my daughter Emily, inspired by a drama she watched as a child, she always wanted to be a lawyer. She was good at both science and art subjects, but chose arts to go into law school. Emily also successfully got into law school and is now working busily as a lawyer. Both of them are still unmarried and living with me. They always put a lot of money into our home, saying we're grateful for the care you've given us. Hearing this, Rick trembled. "Then why didn't you say they were doing so well, or that they could become a doctor and a lawyer?" he shouted. I replied, "I tried to tell you many times. Our kids are working hard and achieving great things, but you never listened to anything I said." Rick fell silent, which was only natural. A father who doesn't know what classes his children are in or what they aspire to be is hardly a father. Rick, in a sore loser's tone, said, "But you couldn't have had the means to send them both to college. Making them take out student loans is just like burdening them with debt. You failed as a mother. Student loans aren't as bad as you think. Anyway, I didn't use them for either of them." At that, Rick's eyes widened in disbelief. "That's impossible. You weren't working while the kids were in high school," he yelled. I explained the reason. "I've always loved drawing and illustrating. When I was working, and even after getting married, I could only draw as a hobby. Drawing with the kids was my most relaxing time, but Rick ridiculed and stopped me from even doing that. When the kids were in middle school, I started posting my art and illustrations on social media. It was because I was inspired by other artists. Unexpectedly, a publisher approached me for illustrating a children's book. This led to more work in illustrating and creating comics. By the time of our divorce, my income was about 3 times what Rick made. I managed these jobs while taking care of the household, but Rick, uninterested in home life, didn't notice. A normal husband might have asked about his wife's sketching or emailing, but not Rick. Hearing this, Rick slumped. Then, although I didn't ask him, he started talking about his life after our divorce. As he told me before, he married his mistress and started living together. But once they got married, she began spending recklessly now that she had access to his money. Despite Rick's protests, she spent all the household money on luxury items. When he reduced her cash allowance, she started maxing out his credit cards. Additionally, as the child with his mistress grew, Rick began to suspect that the child didn't resemble him at all. He had been easily fooled by her comments like, "The child's nose looks like Rick," or "The child has Rick's nervous temperament." I was shocked that he believed for 10 years based on those words alone, but I just listened quietly. Recently, a DNA test revealed that the child was not Rick's, and they are now in a big fight. Rick has been working tirelessly to pay off the debts incurred by his wife and doing household chores, as his wife does nothing. Moreover, their 2 children are willful and disobedient, often getting into trouble, and Rick frequently has to apologize to others on their behalf. As he shared this, Rick began to cry.
When I lived with you guys, things were good. Shirts were always neatly ironed, the food was delicious, and the kids were well behaved. Natalie, please give me another chance.
He begged selfishly. Of course I refused and asked him to leave. However, Rick didn't leave and kept insisting on a second chance and to live in our house. As I was at my wit's end, Jason and Emily, who had been listening in the next room, came in. Upon seeing them, Rick exclaimed, "Oh, Jason, Emily, you've grown so much. I hear you're a doctor and a lawyer now. It's all thanks to the education I paid for, right? Convince your mother for me." But Jason coldly said, "I never thought of you as a father." Emily added, "You might have provided the money, but it was Mom who took us to tutoring and helped with our homework." Faced with their cold response, Rick started yelling again.
Pay back all the education money I spent.
To that, Emily said, "Then please pay the child support and education fees that you didn't pay during the period. You were legally obliged to pay them, weren't you?" Jason, now taller and stronger than Rick, forcibly took him outside and warned, "If you come back, we'll call the police," before throwing him out. Rick stood there in a daze for a while before eventually leaving. Later, I heard from Rick's parents, my former in-laws, that Rick divorced his new wife. Due to the marriage, his savings are not only gone, but he's also in debt and still struggling to pay it off. He's been making mistakes at work due to various stresses and has been demoted to a remote location. Unable to accept this demotion, Rick quit his job. He's now going around to his relatives asking for money to get back with me. It's quite a nuisance. As for us, we're still living happily as a family. Jason is soon getting married to his long-term girlfriend. It's a bit sad, but I'm looking forward to the wedding. Emily has recently started asking me to teach her cooking. Maybe she has a boyfriend. I'm waiting for the right moment to ask. I'm looking forward to enjoying this second chapter of my life.